What if I told you the system designed to help you grow your money is actually designed to slow it down? Most people trust banks with their savings, their investments, even their future. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Banks don't make money when you win big. They make money when you stay predictable, safe, and slightly behind. And once you understand this, you'll never look at investing the same way again. This video isn't about conspiracy theories. It's about how money actually flows in 2026, who controls it, and the investing strategies that quietly build wealth, but rarely get mentioned inside a bank office. And by the end, you'll see exactly what most people are doing wrong, and what smart investors are doing instead. Let's start with something simple, something almost everyone gets wrong. Why do banks push savings accounts so aggressively? It sounds responsible, safe, secure. But here's the twist. Most savings accounts today still offer returns that barely keep up with inflation. In many countries, inflation in recent years has hovered between 5% to even double digits at times, while savings accounts often give far less. So what's actually happening? You think your money is growing, but in reality, it's losing value slowly, quietly, every single year. You save for 5 years, you feel disciplined, responsible. But when you finally use that money, it buys less than it would have before. That's not growth, that's erosion. But banks don't emphasize this. Why? Because your deposits are their fuel. They take your money and lend it out at higher rates. Invest it and generate profit. You get safety, they get leverage. And this is where things get serious. The first investing truth banks rarely explain clearly. Keeping too much money in safe places is actually risky. Now don't misunderstand. Emergency funds are important. Stability matters. But long-term wealth? It doesn't come from parking money. It comes from putting money to work. Let's go deeper. Ever noticed how banks promote fixed deposits, term accounts, or low-risk funds? Again, safe, predictable, controlled. But here's the hidden logic. These products are designed to minimize their risk, not maximize your growth. Because real wealth-building assets, like equities, businesses, or high-growth sectors, are volatile. They move up and down, and volatility scares average investors. So banks guide people towards stability, even if that means slower growth. But here's the twist. Volatility isn't the enemy. Time is. If you zoom out over 10, 15, 20 years, the assets that fluctuate the most often outperform everything else. Stock markets, tech sectors, emerging industries. They look risky short-term, but powerful long-term. And this is where most people get trapped. They confuse temporary discomfort with permanent risk. Let's talk about another thing banks rarely highlight. Fees. Not obvious fees, but hidden ones. Management fees, transaction costs, fund expense ratios. They sound small, perhaps just 1% or 2%. But over time, they compound against you. You invest for 20 years, earning solid returns. But every year, a small percentage gets shaved off. At the end, you might lose tens of thousands, even more, just in fees. And here's the uncomfortable part. Banks and financial institutions earn those fees regardless of your investment performance. So their incentive? Keep you invested but not necessarily optimized. Now let's shift gears. Why don't banks talk more about ownership? Not just saving, not just investing, but owning assets, because ownership changes the game. When you own stocks, you own part of a company. When you invest in businesses, you participate in growth. When you hold assets that generate income, your money starts working independently. But ownership requires education, patience, decision-making, and most systems are not designed to teach that. Here's a question. Why are the wealthiest individuals in the world not keeping most of their money in banks? Because they understand one thing. Wealth is built through assets, not storage. Let's break down what's really happening in today's financial world. In 2025 and 2026, we're seeing major shifts. Digital assets gaining attention. AI-driven industries expanding fast. Global markets becoming more connected, but also more unstable. Interest rates fluctuating. Inflation pressures still lingering in many regions. This creates both risk and opportunity. But banks? They tend to move slowly. They prioritize stability over innovation, which means by the time a trend reaches your bank advisor, it's often already matured. And here's the hidden factor most people ignore. Information speed. Today, the biggest advantage isn't just money. It's awareness. People who understand trends early, position themselves early, and benefit the most. But here's the problem. Most people rely only on traditional financial advice, and that advice is often delayed, filtered, and conservative. Now let's talk about consequences. What happens if someone follows only traditional safe advice? They save money. They avoid risk. They feel secure. But 10, 15 years later, they realize something painful. They didn't lose money, but they also didn't build real wealth. And this is where regret starts. Not from losses, but from missed opportunities. So what should you actually do instead? Let's make this practical. First, understand the difference between saving and investing. Saving protects money. Investing grows it. You need both, but in the right balance. Second, start focusing on long-term assets. Not quick wins, not hype. Assets that can grow over years. This could be equities, index funds, or sectors tied to future growth. Third, minimize unnecessary fees. Even small percentages matter over time. Always ask, how much am I actually keeping? Fourth, learn basic financial literacy. You don't need to become an expert, but understanding how markets work changes how you make decisions. And finally, think independently. Don't rely only on one source, especially not one that benefits from your inaction. Because here's the truth, no one cares about your money more than you do. Now let's look ahead. What does the future of investing look like between 2026 and 2030? We're entering a period of transformation. AI will reshape industries. New financial systems will emerge. Global markets will become more volatile, but also more rewarding for those who understand them. The gap between informed investors and passive savers will grow wider. And the biggest opportunity, it won't be just in where you invest, but in how early you understand what's coming. Because by the time something becomes safe, the biggest gains are already gone. So the real question is, are you playing the game to protect your money or to grow it? Because those are two very different strategies. At the end of the day, banks aren't your enemy, but they're also not your roadmap to wealth. They're a system, and like any system, they're built with their own priorities. Once you understand that, you stop blindly following and start thinking strategically. And that's when things change. If this made you rethink how money actually works, then you're already ahead of most people. Drop a comment. What's one thing about money that no one ever taught you? And if you want more content like this, hit subscribe. Because the biggest financial advantage in the next decade won't be money, it'll be understanding. And now you're starting to get it.